Next, we're going to explore a new frontier in human health as it becomes increasingly clear that our health crisis at its core is really an energy crisis. And I'm thrilled to welcome Christy Adamo, who will share insights on how adopting a more dynamic and integrated perspective on cellular energy and mitochondrial function might unlock new approaches to our physical and mental health and vitality. Chris, are you here somewhere?
I am indeed.
Yes.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for the intro, Susan. And frankly, this talk is essentially, diving a little bit deeper into the science and practical application of what Susan teed up regarding mitochondrial function. Though the imagery here is nowhere near as beautiful as what Susan had presented. So just in brief, and all of this is going to be quite brief, mitochondria, as most of you probably realize, are organelles that are in our cells. There are typically many mitochondria within each cell, sometimes thousands of which. So we've got quadrillions of mitochondria in our body. And historically, and I'd say most classically, we think of mitochondria for energy production. All right, and I'm going to go into that a little bit today. This is a wonderful paper, by the way, that I've got the citation for below, but we know now that there is so much more to mitochondria than just producing energy. Producing the substrate for all kinds of chemicals and substances in the body, or neurotransmitters or hormones, genetic material. They're involved directly in homeostasis of a wide variety of physiological processes, and just a tremendous amount of signaling. I think it's where some of the most interesting science is, both within the cell, with genetic expression, but outside of it. So, the central nervous system, our microbiota, circadian biology, metabolic system, immune function. So mitochondria are clearly a big deal in human health and flourishing. And this is just a cross section of the mitochondrial inner membrane, where a lot of the action takes place with respect to generating energy. And a lot of this comes down to food. So food, we classically think of food in this process, both the macronutrients that provide calories that we consume, and then just thousands of different micronutrients that also play a role in these various stages of what we call the electron transport chain that you see pictured here. What I find fascinating is the impact of light on this as well. So the best way to get this is through sunlight, which unfortunately we've become kind of phobic of in recent years and decades. But the different wavelengths of the blue, yellow, green, red, near infrared that you get from sunlight are activating various aspects or various stages along the electron transport chain that help us produce energy. So critically important. And when things aren't going well with our mitochondria, there are sort of classic mitochondrial dysfunction diseases like Lee syndrome, these types of things. But I'd say much more relevance today, the chronic disease epidemic that we're in across, essentially every organ system. You see a lot of the diseases and dysfunctions here, are largely attributed to, in a very upstream way, to poor mitochondrial function. And in fact, much of the aging process itself is likely driven by mitochondrial dysfunction. A mentor and colleague of mine, Luigi Frucci, and his group at the NIA, they're running the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging, published some really interesting work looking at this mitochondrial theory of aging, where oxidative stress within the mitochondria is upstream of inflammation. So somewhat bidirectional. But largely being driven by mitochondrial dysfunction. And, most of us realize just how chronic inflammation has been associated with most chronic diseases and, poor outcomes in acute conditions as well. The really interesting, hallmarks of aging papers, there was a seminal back in 2013 and a more recent one. Mitochondrial dysfunction is a key aspect in this one. I don't have much time to go into it, other than it's just recognized as incredibly important. Now, the good news is, and Susan kind of teed this up, is that we know how to have good mitochondrial health for the most part. A lot of that's going to come down to a nutrient-dense diet, minimizing the ultra-processed foods. It's great to see recognition of that, and maybe even some policy changes that are coming regarding ultra-processed foods. And there's many ways to eat a nutrient-dense diet. Just essentially minimizing the number of packaged food, and eating real whole ancestral foods like you see listed here. Movement, physical activity, connection with others is key. There's really good evidence on social connection in mitochondrial function. If you can do this outside, even better. Sleep and stress management in all its forms. These are really the foundations of optimal mitochondrial health. Now, to sort of go a little bit further with this. So this is a nice image, I think, that captures most of the key ways we can cover mitochondrial health. These are all hormetic. So the ones in the blue are, in many ways, this is the kind of foundation. So eating a good diet, having our circadian rhythms and timed, and eating fermented foods, tribe and clan strategies. I love that this paper calls that out specifically, but also pushing ourselves a little bit outside of our comfort zone. So hormesis, which is, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And there's a lot of ways to do this. Heat and cold exposure have become quite popular, whether that's, cold shower or time in the sauna, where there's pretty good evidence. Time restricted eating and fasting. You don't want to do this all the time, of course. But doing some form of this is likely going to be helpful. Same thing with exercise. This is a hormetic stressor. Then there's the different things you can do with breath work, which we know have been useful to us in a variety of spiritual and physical ways. All of these challenges are going to help our mitochondria become stronger. Alongside the more foundational modifiable lifestyle factors that I mentioned before. So just to tie it all up and to stay on time here, it is clear that mitochondrial function is essential and maybe one of the most upstream factors in human health and disease. Much more to mitochondria than just producing energy. There's still more to be learned in this respect. And really our foundation is just going to be the modifiable lifestyle factors that you see here and beyond. And then, I'd say optimize what you're looking to do would be to tap into some of these hormetic stressors when you can on occasion. So thank you, and been a pleasure to present.